My name is Christopher Dempsey. Where to begin? Oh my goodness. Well, I was on active duty up at Fort Drum with the 10th Mountain Division. I was a JAG Corps officer, drug commissioning, straight out of law school. Zero military training whatsoever, other than a few years that I spent in ROTC in college. Went up to Fort Drum out of the officer basic course. And about 6 months later, deployed to Afghanistan and supported 10th Mountain Division in CJTF 76 operation across the country of Afghanistan. My job there was to defend soldiers accused of crimes, either pending non-judicial punishment or courts-martial. And to do my job, I had to travel widely throughout the theater to all the forward operating bases, wherever the crime occurred, to go to the scene of the crime, to interview witnesses, to gather evidence for the next courts-martial trial term that happened once a month. I hung my hat at Bagram, that's where my office was, but I was there maybe 1 week out of every month. The rest of the time I was traveling by virtually every single means imaginable: fixed-wing aircraft, helicopters, convoys. However I could get to where I needed to go, I would ride. And so I got the grand tour. Afghanistan's a really beautiful place. Honestly, if the Taliban wasn't there, if it wasn't so dangerous, there could be a lot of tourism. Beautiful mountains, snow-capped, mountains so high that the helicopters had trouble climbing over them. Almost felt like sitting on the back, I could reach out and grab the snow with my fingers. You know, what happens in war happens. And so I'm this lawyer out in the field. A lot of times I had a 9mm pistol. Other times I'd swap weapons with one of my comrades up at Bagram and take their M16 long rifle in case something happened. But imagine a civilian wearing a military uniform on active duty, but very little training, just pop them in the middle of Afghanistan and things start happening. I'm a pretty resilient person, and I got through it. There was a lot of traumas. You know, I got shot my weapon on convoys where IEDs exploded and killed U.S. service members. Told a guy his best friend died. Rode back to Bagram in a helicopter with 4 transfer cases, which is where they put the remains, and on and on and on. I mean, rockets, you name it. So like I said, I got the grand tour and the ultimate experience, but I'm not, you know, like a hoo-ah, you know, special forces guy. I have a sensitive heart, and I certainly wasn't trained. Training would have helped, I think, but I wasn't trained for the experience. So I came back to active duty, rotated our PCS down to DC, did some appellate work, got off active duty, went to work for the Justice Department. I couldn't sleep from the moment really halfway through my time in Afghanistan, but definitely not upon my return. I used to go get in this cubby in our master bedroom back in Watertown, New York, and cover myself up and try and get some sleep, but I just could not sleep. I thought I was just stressed out from work stuff. Back then, mental disorders, PTSD, anything like that was faux pas. If you talked about any kind of mental suffering, any mental condition, you went to behavioral health, it's going to burn your career. So I kept it on the DL and just assumed, I did end up going to behavioral health because I couldn't sleep, and I couldn't sleep. It was so bad I had to get glasses because my eyes were so tired I couldn't read. And then, the nightmares. But I thought I'd all work itself out. It's an ordinary experience, I'm transitioning back from combat to civilian society. And again, I'm a resilient person. Start my tenure at the Justice Department in DC as a trial attorney. I left active duty and went into the Army Reserves because I wanted to keep one foot in the door. I like serving, I liked wearing the uniform. I really liked defending soldiers accused of crimes. As you might imagine, there's the overzealous trial counsel in the JAG Corps tend to overcharge cases. The military has very hefty sentences for what we would consider petty or minor crimes. So the more experienced I got, the better I got. And I was training a lot of people on the reserves to do courts martial in case they ever got activated to duty. So I'm a trial attorney at DOJ, pretty active reserve career, 3 kids. I'm helping, in the Boy Scouts. I'm involved in my church, all the right things. I'm getting promoted at work. I'm a trial attorney to senior litigation counsel to assistant director. And then eventually they made me the chief of the national security unit. And my job was to travel all across the country. There's 94 U.S. district courts in the United States. So I travel all over the United States, trying cases where there was some connection between immigration and national security. This is post 9/11, global war on terrorism was big. And there were a lot of people here that were already here that wanted to follow in the footsteps of the 9/11 hijackers and do all kinds of things I can't talk about. And I felt like it was a meaningful role for me to continue to fight, to use my skills as a trial attorney at the highest levels to try and protect our citizens. So I had that, again, busy Army Reserve career. I'm an avid runner. And I think, honestly, that's why it took me so long to lose myself, because I'd run to and from work every day, 8 miles door to door. And it was a good way to stay sane, to stay calm, to cope, to mellow me out. I, in a way, self-medicate. And I got into running 100-milers, from marathons to 50-milers to 100-milers all across the United States. In 2016, I completed the Grand Slam of ultra running, which is 4 100-milers, 11 weeks in total, about 2 or 3, 4 weeks in between them. I was the 297th person on planet Earth to complete that feat. So very, very high functioning. But the thing about PTSD is it doesn't discriminate. You could be, high level, white collar, an executive. You could be blue collar, in manufacturing. It doesn't matter. It's like, it just doesn't discriminate. It's a common denominator. And everybody tracks the same experience. And if you don't get help, if you don't resolve your combat trauma, if you don't, get therapy or medication management, or just talk to somebody, you tend to isolate and it can bring you down. So I am a perfect example, a prime example of what PTSD unchecked can do to destroy your life. And that's what happened. It took about a decade. So I deployed in 2006. We're talking 2016, 2017 now. That's when I just couldn't do it anymore. My marriage started to fall apart. My career was fine, but that's because I was good at, keeping things secret. But, my home life was horrible. And as I started to feel this drift take me and pull me away, it got worse and worse. I got into drinking. I was self-medicating. If I had a few drinks, I didn't feel like crap, I felt more relaxed. My nervous system wasn't like buzzing, and it'd get me through a night. But, it becomes a problem pretty quick, especially, I don't think you'll meet a vet with PTSD that hasn't either had alcohol or some other substance abuse issue. They go hand in hand because we're running. We're trying to escape that experience, that pervasive fear, the anxiety, that's haunting. It really could level a person. And slowly but surely, I started to lose everything. I was going to outpatient treatment. That level of care wasn't high enough. I hadn't yet gone to inpatient treatment. I was drinking every night. I had left my wife at the time, missing my children, feeling like a failure, feeling totally alone. Like, in a matter of months, I was living in the basement of an Airbnb, barely working, using all my sick days, drinking every night, and just completely lost. And for somebody like me, my experience is I was super high functioning, I was crushing it at work, had all the titles, sexy job, making a difference, white picket fence house in Arlington, Virginia, 3 kids, all that stuff. And having lost pretty much all of it over the course of a number of months, laying in there in that basement, I started to feel like maybe the world would be better off without me in it. Like I was the villain. I was the common denominator. It was my fault. I had a lot of survivor's guilt. I had a lot of, moral injury type, psychological occurrences. And I just wanted the pain to stop. And at some point, the drinking's not enough. So I bought my first firearm of this story. I think it was a 6-hour pistol, and started telling all my friends and family goodbye. And we're talking March 2017. I'm laying in that basement. It's 3 a.m, and I've got the gun in my mouth with the bullets in the chamber, and I'm starting to squeeze the trigger. And all I could think of was my children. In that moment, that is, and all the moments to follow, and the chaos I'm about to describe, that my children were the reason I didn't pull the trigger, because I couldn't do that to them. I knew it would wound them. I knew it would ruin the rest of their lives. That kind of tragedy would put them in the same position I was in, and I just couldn't do it. That's all I could think of. So, but that was only the first of 5 guns that I bought. Each one of them got taken away by law enforcement when I got Baker Acted, or whatever the Virginia equivalent of Baker Act is, involuntarily committed temporarily, arrested for DUI, you name it. So that was a wake-up call. I ended up going into inpatient treatment in Martinsburg, West Virginia. One of the best kept secrets in the VA is the domiciliary in Martinsburg, West Virginia. Went to the post-residential rehabilitation program for about 4 weeks, till they took us to the wall in Cumberland, Maryland, which has a list of all the names of those who died in the conflicts in Iraq and Afghanistan. I don't know why they would take a bunch of vets in a PTSD clinic to a wall to see the names of people they knew who were killed in their combat experience. Anyway, me and a couple other guys, freaked out that night. I ended up just running, and I went out to the woods near the Potomac River, and I just laid on the ground. So inpatient wasn't safe. Regular life wasn't safe. I ran, like a lot of vets do, to the woods. And I just laid there for 3 days. I got so thirsty one night, I army crawled down to the river. I was too weak to walk. So I just army crawled down to the river and cupped my hands. And I just remember the moonlight, and there's the big moon and the flat river, and just cupping my hands and drinking out of the river because I was so dehydrated. And that experience replayed itself over and over and over again. For the next 3 or 4 weeks, I was just driving from town to town. I'd disassociate, meaning you just totally don't have any conscious recollection of what happened, and end up in North Carolina, 2 states below, sleeping underneath an abandoned house on some Native American reservation. I mean, just crazy. I was out of my mind, and completely aimless. And I'd go back to the VA and get a few weeks treatment, come back out, and the same thing would happen over and over and over again. Ended up moving down to Florida, was living with my dad while I was going through my marriage separation. At that point, I wasn't working anymore. They put me on administrative leave. I could not be the chief of the National Security Unit, as you might imagine, acting like that. So I was also in the process of losing my job. That was the end result that was going to happen. So I had lost everything. I lost my family, my kids, or at least I thought. I had lost everything that I thought shaped and defined who I was as a person, completely unmoored. Had a couple episodes at my dad's place. They kicked me out. Had enough money for a hotel for one night. Went to my church in Keystone, Florida. Again, sleeping on the floor, on the ground of the woods. They had a prayer garden next to the church that I remembered, so I walked back out there, and I just laid on the ground for 3 days. And I was like, look, I don't have the courage to pull the trigger. I just want to die. Just take me. I prayed to God. I said, just take me. I'm done. There's nothing. I felt like there was nowhere to go. It wasn't going to be pain. Eventually, I was in the parking lot or something going out to my car, and I ran into the pastor of the church. And so he asked me what was going on. I'd been going to Bible study on Wednesdays, church on the weekends. And so he knew me, but he didn't know my story. And he asked to help me, and they put me up in a place for a couple days. One of the guys at the church that I sat with at Bible study hired me to be a day laborer, doing a remod project on some house. Made it a couple days with him. He paid me in cash. What did I do? I went and bought more booze. Ended up at Camp Blanding as long as I could afford the hotel rooms. MPs came and asked me what was going on. I was such a mess. Obviously, people were noticing me and my behavior. FRG group even brought me some food. I thought that really moved me. That once I told them what was going on, they wanted to help. But it wasn't enough. And eventually I couldn't pay for any more rooms on Camp Blanding. Ended up some guy or volunteer that drove a VA that said, drove a RV that said VA on the side of it or something. Went and came and took me to go get some gas. And I think he gave me $100, and I ended up in Gainesville. Got a hotel for like $65, so I've got like $30 to my name. I wasn't getting paid for anything at the time. I wasn't able to work. I had all my VA pay going to my wife so she could pay rent to keep the lights on for my children. So I had no money, and that was about it. That one, I didn't know what I was going to do the next night. And probably just going to continue that cycle of destruction until I didn't survive it one night, in perpetuity. And then I got a call from a guy named Trey Fagan. And really, the more I think about it, that is the miracle that happened. That is the beginning of what would eventually become the chapter of recovery and hope and better times in my life. I just didn't know it. I was like, here's this guy. But I guess he'd heard from me, because that's what Trey would do. Trey just has this heart where he wants to help vets. And, he's in rural Florida. There's vets everywhere. But it's a relatively under-resourced area. It's not like some of the more major cities where you're going to have better programs to assist vets. But Trey took it on himself to go out there and sort of be the boots on the ground, the front lines, looking for vets that needed help, like me. And he ended up connecting me with 5-Star Veterans Center, where I went to go stay until they kicked me out. But meanwhile, while I was at 5-Star, I'd met my friend and mentor, Dan Bean, who gave me a job working as a paralegal at his law firm, and was probably the most patient man I've ever met, because I'd go in and out. I'd work for a couple weeks, and then I'd have an episode or get triggered and freak out and just hunker down in my apartment and drink. But slowly, surely, little bit by little bit, I got better. I got resources. I got mental health care treatment. I got my finances back on track. I got a place to live. I got involved in, Wounded Warriors, United Way, 5-Star Veterans Center, Semper Fi, and I continued to talk to Trey, and he's sort of my quarterback throughout this time. I had a spiritual advisor. It was an entire village it took to save me. And, it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Recovery is not a linear process. It's not like you snap your fingers one day and you're better. It's not like you drink a magic potion and just cure it and be done. You have to learn, you have to grow, you have to heal. It takes years. So we're talking 2018 at this time. My last major inpatient treatment for 4 weeks was at Wakaiva involuntary at first. Late 2018, my last hospitalization was December 2019. I had a relapse and drunk for like 3 days, and they came and got me like the 6 I think I've been involuntarily hospitalized 12 times. 12 times. Over 100, way over 100 days. I counted it at some point. It just makes me sad now, but that's how long it took. Really, it was a 3-year process of suffering and false starts and setbacks. But that was my last hospitalization, and still took some time. But now, where I sit today, look, I've got a law firm. I make good money. I have a house that I own. My wife is like an angel. If angels walk among us, my wife is an angel, and she was sent here to help me stay the course. And the biggest blessing I have is my job is literally to help other people. People come to me and they've got an issue with their landlord, their spouse, their business, their immigration status, whatever it is. My job's to help them. And because of my suffering, I have this extra measure of empathy, and I could feel their pain and I want to help. And as I sit here today, I am convinced with every fiber in my being, the only reason that I'm still alive is I should have died many, many times, whether it was by my own hand or my drinking or just malnourishment. The only reason that I'm here is because it's God's plan. And God's plan is that I have a special talent, a special ability to help other people, other vets, other civilians, people in need. And every day I log into my computer or go to my office or meet with clients or go to court, I am on the right side trying to help somebody find justice, find a better ending. My mentor, Dan Bean, who I mentioned earlier, explained what practice of law is. We get our clients and we carry them across a very difficult patch in their life, a challenge. And when we set them down on the other side, hopefully they're better off. That's my job, is to carry other people through difficult times in their lives. And I have made tremendous difference in this world just since I've been in private practice, since I got better on the other side of things. I am currently litigating a class action representing over 40,000 Afghans who are trying to flee the Taliban. They worked with us. They worked with U.S. and coalition forces. Taliban's hunting them down. It's life or death for them. And I'm carrying these 40,000 people to hopefully safety and peace. I took a case to the United States Supreme Court. Look, like less than 1% of attorneys file a case to the United States Supreme Court. I'm one of them. How is it that I was laying in the woods trying to die, and a couple years later, I'm in the United States Supreme Court, the highest court in the land, litigating a case trying to bring a family together that should be together? And I could go on and on. I am handled way over 300 cases since I got better. Every single one of them, that person was suffering. Every single one of them, that was the most important thing to that person at that particular moment in their life. That's what I'm talking about. I am here to do that work. That is servant work, right? That is God's plan for me. Because if I was gone, all those 300 people, maybe they would have found somebody else to help them. Maybe not. Maybe they wouldn't see it the same way I did. I am here because I had more things to do. That was God's plan. And part of that plan was the help I got. That, like I said, the watershed moment when my phone rang and Trey Fagan gave me a call and connected with me at a human level. That, beyond any other moment in my life, was the beginning of getting better. And I owe literally my life to Trey, to Operation Barnabas. I can say with absolute certainty, I would not be here today doing the good work I'm doing if it wasn't for Operation Barnabas, if it wasn't for Trey Fagan, period. Because I would have just kept drifting and been lost and eventually died, like is all too common when you take bets with combat trauma. It happens every day, unfortunately, in the multiple dozens. And it's really, it's sad because we have a sacred social contract vets go out and they protect us. They help keep us safe. We put them in harm's way. A lot of them are young and underprepared psychologically to go through the rigors of combat. We owe them a sacred duty as a society to care for them when they return, to give back to the vet who's given and offered to give everything for us. Some do. And that's how it works. But the best part is when you help a vet like me, like Trey did, like Operation Barnabas did, they can become a force multiplier because I'm one person. Trey helped one person that day. He saved one life, definitely saved my life. Now I've helped 300 plus people in dire circumstances. And I'm just getting started. This is just the beginning. I'm not retiring anytime soon. Haven't lost my hair yet, so. And I love what I do. I have a deep passion for it because I know that it is keeping with what God's plan is for me. So Operation Barnabas helped make that plan possible. And from the bottom of my heart, I am beyond words grateful for them saving my life, because not a day goes by that I don't open my eyes and my first thought is gratitude. I am so grateful to be alive, and not just alive, but well and happy, and have all the things and all the gifts and blessings. And on top of that, I get to help people, and it really fulfills me. It makes me feel good as a human being, and it all makes sense to me. So I'm a force multiplier, just one person. Imagine if we helped all the vets, what a better society we would have, what better values we may have. But yeah, not a single day goes by that I don't have multiple times a day gratitude. Because I would have just fell asleep forever in those woods if Trey didn't find me. And he wasn't the only one that tried to help me, but it was the only time it worked.